Hello, everyone. This is Stephen Olson, the host of Some Assembly Required, Organizing Free Thinkers. This is the podcast dedicated to helping group organizers troubleshoot their various problems and to help inspire people who are atheists or free thinkers or skeptics, inspire them to create groups, show them that it's actually not that difficult. Uh, Joining me today is Dave Muscato of MU SASHA.
Hello.
See, I pronounced it correctly this time.
Yes.
And Cassie Rogers, one of my compatriots from the Springfield Freethinkers.
Hey,
So, the topic this week was suggested by Cassie, and it's a fantastic one, which is how to arrange meetups around and for the holidays, which is pretty perfectly timed because we're getting this right before Thanksgiving. So, some of you might not be making your holiday event plans yet.
or some of you may not see the need for it.
There is that as well.
Yeah, some atheist groups I've heard of are like, well, why? Why would we do that?
Which is
But
interesting because like one of the biggest like kind of like I almost call it a straw man objection that I hear from religious people about atheists celebrating Christmas or something like that is, well, but you don't believe in the mythology, so why would you worship on the holiday? Um, which is kind of a straw man because it doesn't really have anything to do with why we enjoy the holiday. But it's kind of interesting that
right,
you've actually
right.
experienced that kind of backlash on that.
Yeah, I think if I had a nickel, as the saying goes, yeah, it's all the time. I think we hear that. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. But there's so much more to holidays than just the love and warmth of the Jesus or whatever God that you may. Yeah. Anyway,
I say I'm kind of the other way around. I really actually like the holidays and Christmas, and our family puts up a Christmas tree, even though my mom is Jewish, and my dad is Roman Catholic, but they're both actually deists, and it's not an important thing to them. But we do the whole Christmas thing every year. We have a big dinner, and the same for Thanksgiving. It's a ritual, and its rituals are important to people living in a society. It provides some stability. It provides good memories, later on, and it's anthropologically it's just an important part of being a social animal is having these things that we do every year. And it's not a Christian thing. It's not. I mean, Christmas itself is a pagan holiday. It's all of the rituals that come from Christmas, the tree, the tinsel that decorates the tree, exchanging presents with each other. Um, Ham is certainly not, the Christmas dinner is certainly not from Jewish tradition. But, I mean, the whole thing, though, exchanging presents with each other. I'm actually working on a talk about the history of the real Christmas story. Exchanging presents with each other was temporarily outlawed by the Catholic Church during the Middle Ages because they said exchanging presents with each other is not what Jesus' birthday is about. You're supposed to giving presents to the church, and this is left over from a pagan tradition of Io Saturnalia of exchanging presents with each other, and you shouldn't be doing that if you're good Catholics, and they couldn't get people to stop. It was unenforceable because it was just so ingrained as a social institution, as a cultural icon for people who'd been doing it ever since they were children, and they didn't want to stop. And it's the same for me. Since I became an atheist, I don't want to stop giving presents, and there's no reason that I should actually wait until December 25th, but it's fun to have the whole tree and the opening of the presents and all that stuff, and so we do it.
yeah, and it's not just fun in a family unit, but I kind of when I got out of the church, I also miss doing that in a community unit, like
Hmm.
church getting together or whatever you have, but and eating lutefisk as our group did. But so when I got into an atheist group, I kind of wanted that as well. So, and I think a lot of people miss that also.
That's interesting because like I've only ever had family Christmas stuff. I've never been religious, so for me, the only community-driven Christmas events that I've really done are with the Springfield Freethinkers and groups like that. So it's a little interesting to see it that way. We did have lots of Borders employee get-togethers around holidays, because that was a pretty close-knit group too. But I guess that's the closest thing I can think of.
Did you ever do any kind of Secret Santa or something like that that was a little bit more explicitly Christmas related with holiday get-togethers?
Not really. I mean, my family, because we're really big, has done Secret Santa, but it always ends up turning out a little weird because most of us don't know each other that well.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, whenever we do the Secret Santa thing, it's like, I got you this thing that you might like.
There's a teapot. You like tea? Yeah. Yeah. So that's kind of a good idea for a community like that, where you maybe don't know everybody, but you can give.
I was actually thinking that that could be a good way to encourage people to get to know each other better. If you have, like, here's a Secret Santa thing, limits $10, and you draw John Henry's name, and you don't really know anything about John Henry except that he doesn't like it when people don't hyphenate his name. So it gives you an opportunity to find out about the guy and what he's interested in.
Yeah, I think that's a great part of it, and that's part of the whole spirit of it anyway, is getting to know each other, and like I mentioned before, like building memories together about this sort of thing. Yeah, I think it's part of being human.
Yeah.
At the risk of sounding too much like Alain de Botton, why is ritual important?
I don't know why. That's a good question. I should explore that a little bit in my talk. I will write that down. But I definitely think that it is important. I know Jack David Eller talks about that in some of his books. In his Introduction to Anthropology of Religion, he mentions the two reasons that religion exists and persists. He talks about the one reason being that it answers big questions about where the universe came from and the whole, the mythology of it. But despite having piss-poor answers to those types of questions in light of modern science, religion persists. And the other reason that religion started was because of this community building type of stuff, and because of the ritual and stuff like that, and having solidified reasons for things like that. Yeah, I'm not sure why that's important to us as a species in the first place, though. That's a really good question.
I know when I was in the church, it was kind of like a sense of stationarity. Like, this is always something that's going to happen every, I'm going to go to Advent on this day. I'm going to, it's just a sense of stationarity and something you're doing together, and just you kind of get that shared experience as well. So, and nostalgia, I think, is a big thing too.
Mm-hmm.
So even if Lord Satan, aka Obama, destroys all of the American traditions, you still have Christmas.
Exactly. He might destroy Christmas, though. I don't know.
Well, it gives people hope, and if you read like Elie Wiesel and guys like that, during World War II, even in concentration camps, it was important for people to practice their rituals, and it gave them a sense of, as you mentioned, stability and hope when it seems like nothing else can keep you together culturally. It just connects you to something bigger than yourself, and I think that's something that's important to all of us. I think that's why that quotation, "We are all Stardust," resonates so much with atheists, is that it helps us feel like we're not alone in this existential crisis that comes up in a lot of people.
Yeah. So, have you ever been in a community where you've gotten pushback from having kind of Christmas parties or holiday parties or anything like that?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
No, not really. I mean, it's pretty much always been, in my experience, like, well, if you don't want to participate, you don't have to come. It's just a party. If you want to come, you don't want to bring anything, you don't have to bring anything. It's for me, it's always been more of just something to do if you want that, and if you don't want that, then no hard feelings.
Yeah. I think it seems like really important to have a holiday get together for the freethinker, atheistic group, or whatever you have going on, just because this is a really stressful time, I think, for people that are not religious. We go home to our families who are sometimes religious, and it seems like seems like the perfect time for them to bring up any pestering question about why don't you go to church with me, etc. Why are you a Satanist now, etc. Whatever, kind of crazy, and it's just hard to be around that. And sometimes I think having a little break in the middle was always something I looked forward to. I knew that we would have our little holiday party, whatever it may be. So.
I've been fairly lucky that most of my family is either secular themselves or very much in the nice Christian camp, and they don't really get really pushy about stuff. So most of my interactions with religious family members has been after I got married, and thankfully they've all been pretty reasonable, and haven't really pushed the issue, so I haven't really had to deal with that. I've been extremely lucky compared to a lot of other atheists. But I totally see why that would be a problem. It is definitely a position where you're on the home turf of the religious when they're talking about why you should be religious.
And I think a lot of people get it's just so in your face. You go to Target or whatever, and there's crosses decorated with jingle bells. I don't know, whatever. So it's just all over the place. And I know people that are maybe more angry at that time of year because it is in your face, or they're newer atheists or newer agnostics, and they're dealing with all the stress of being just absolutely inundated by all of it. So it's a good time to have a meetup.
Oh, yes, definitely. And sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, I definitely think consistency is really important for groups at this time of year. You shouldn't. I highly recommend group leaders not say we're going to skip this one because we all have stuff going on with our families, and if you're not going to do a Christmas one, then do a Festivus or something, but have some kind of event that people can come to. If they don't want to go to their religious one, just because it's important to people to have something to go to, I think.
And as far as making sure that you can get that event taken care of, I think that scheduling it not on the holiday itself helps out tremendously. Because then, you can get the people who also want to spend time with their families, but the people who, for whatever reason, don't want to or can't spend time with their families. For example, Cassie living in Portland, Oregon, you might be far away from your family and not able to see them, even if you're willing to deal with the religious stuff.
Yeah, I think we're going to have a Skype Christmas. Or Google Hangout, whatever.
It's not a bad idea. I found that they actually work out fairly well for helping telecommute family members.
Very nice. So, what are some?
But yes, definitely make sure it's not on the same day, if for no other reason than just so that you get more people showing up. Sorry, you were saying?
So, what are some fun holiday ideas? I'm excited about this part. So we've had some cool parties, and so I'm excited to hear what everybody else has done.
Well, one thing that I came up with for the Springfield Freethinkers was inspired by Bill O'Reilly's annual tirade about how evil secularists are. So instead of a Christmas party, we had a War on Christmas party, which wasn't really that different from a Christmas party, but we decorated the Christmas tree with little plastic army men.
It was the best. Yeah. It was camo netting with little army men and Christmas lights interwoven. It was spectacular.
That's great.
But I think if somebody had come on the meetup sites and maybe had seen that, it wasn't quite offense, they might have been like, there is a war on Christmas.
Well,
that's
Fred,
actually the main reason why our shooting meetup, we decided not to go with the original name, which was going to be Militant Atheists.
Fred Edwards over the summer gave a great talk about running groups at the Midwest Free Thought Conference, and he mentioned having two different types of subgroups within your regular group. And he said new members especially might be the angry come-outers, he called them. And he said you want to give them a place to talk about this kind of stuff, to tell anti-religious jokes, and to create a subgroup within your normal group, if you can, that is more suited to that type of person, the Christopher Hitchens type of atheist, anti-theist. And that might be a more appropriate type of place to host a party, like a War on Christmas party. It might not be for everybody, but for the people who appreciate that humor and get it and want to be part of it, I think it's important to have a place for them to feel comfortable making fun of Christmas and not feel like they're hurting anybody's feelings.
That's genius. That's really smart, because
I like that idea.
There's definitely those two separate groups, the people who are kind of have been in the community for a while and they're not, I don't know, I think you're still angry at something, righteously so, as Greta Christina would say, but but I think definitely newer atheists are need that.
I think the older ones, they're still angry, but they've mellowed out a little bit because they get fatigued from getting angry about it every time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you do it 20 years in a row, and it's more just that you want to see your friends. But if it's your first time having Christmas with other atheists, and you're like, yeah, so how much does Jesus love you? This much, right? And, yeah, that's a bad one.
That one's still pretty good. It's bad, but I like it. So you mentioned a Festivus one. I don't really know much about Festivus besides there's a poll involved.
Yeah, so the only other thing established by the canon of Seinfeld is the feats of strength and the airings of grievances. So according to the show, Festivus for the rest of us, if you're not Christian and you're not Jewish, you have an aluminum pole that you can either decorate or not. And then you have some kind of like wrestling match or something like that, and then you basically tell everybody what you hate about them, and it can be funny, and it's in the show it wasn't supposed to be funny, but it's Seinfeld, so it ended up being hilarious. But I mean, different groups do all sorts of different things. Treat it like a Christmas tree and put presents underneath it and stuff like that. Just something to satirize and make a parody out of the idea of Christmas.
Do you think it's a good idea? I've heard of lots of groups, they'll get a little peeved that there's a religious display at the courthouse or whatever, so they'll go put up their own tree or something like that, or, with permission, or fight for permission to put up their own tree. I think the Flying Spaghetti Monsters at Missouri State had an issue with that one year. Came down to security taking their tree away or something like that, but I don't know, it sounds kind of fun, but I think you'd have to be more of an activist group to pull it off.
Or have some people in your group who are more activist-minded. You don't necessarily have to have your entire group's attitude be arranged that way. If a couple of you want to do that and take it up and be persistent about it, then go for it, I would say.
I tend to agree with Dave on this. However, you will find a lot of resistance within your group of people who don't want the group to do that, and they don't want to be associated with a group that would do that. I don't think there's anything wrong with having different interest sets met within a group, as long as you're obviously not doing something like burning down churches. I mean, there's got to be a line where you're like, okay, this group is not something I'm a part of.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't see anything wrong with the activists having their activists meet up and.
Or you could always go caroling. I think there was one group, maybe it was that in Springfield or here, but it was going to do atheist carols. It's kind of fun.
What would that just be? Tim Minchin?
Tim Minchin, Shelley Segal, yeah.
Like 2 songs, but over.
So, before I forget, okay, so we were talking about Festivus and the War on Christmas, and these kind of like fake versions of the holidays. do you think that like that kind of takes away from the tradition aspect that we were talking about? I mean, because we're still like getting together with friends and family and getting drunk on eggnog while we're doing the War on Christmas. But I mean, by taking away some of those things, do you think that we're eliminating part of the fun?
I think they're more fun, but
Yeah,
maybe
I think just they're more. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
no. You're fine. You're fine. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think authenticity is very important in terms of building nostalgia and good memories and things like that. And if you can't be authentic with your intentions because you're in front of people who disagree with you about fundamental things, it's you're not being true to yourself. And if you can do a parody type of thing, and I mean the point of it is to take away from it, and if that's how you really feel, and you feel free to express that, I think that's an important part of building traditions.
Yeah, that's good.
My
Yeah,
favorite two holiday parodies that I've seen recently were the Easter zombie party that Cassie and Jonathan put together, and um, and the Easter platypus from Invader Zim, which I think is a tradition that we just need to have.
that's fantastic. I like that. I'm all about dressing up as a platypus, and it's less sticky than dressing up as a zombie.
Plus, everybody gets shrimp. How could you go wrong?
Just make the vegans angry.
I
Uh,
resent that remark.
that actually
Half our
does
presents that.
that does bring me to an important point. I would say when you're doing a Thanksgiving or Christmas potluck kind of thing, um, this isn't necessarily tied into atheism or skepticism at all, but it's a nice thing to make sure that everything's labeled properly for all the people who have gluten allergies or who are vegans or I'm running out of dietary things, but there's a ton of different things like that. So it doesn't hurt to take the extra time to label things.
Yeah, definitely. Totally wash your hands while you're cooking too. Anyway, so yeah, and speaking of food and just kind of getting together and doing what churches would call fellowship, I think another kind of cool thing to do is actually try to do a little community service around the holidays. Uh, One of our group members had an awesome idea, and I felt really bad that I left Springfield before I had time to implement it. But they were talking about doing reason rations, which is where you would just kind of go serve at a soup kitchen or hand out food to the homeless, like a sandwich or something like that, and have it labeled reason ration. And it's kind of a nice meal that people don't have to pray for to get. So
Yeah, I had thought about this earlier when you were talking about. You mentioned not having your holiday event on Christmas itself. Um, if you do that and you find yourself free on Christmas, if your family doesn't do a special dinner or something like that, it might be nice to have a separate event where you go volunteer or something like that, just so that you can all see each other twice and give something back at the same time.
that's a great idea. Yeah, and that's someday when people are you know thankful for a hot meal or whatever. Anyway, so yeah.
And I
It's
also want.
definitely a harder time of year too for a lot of folks. I mean, Christmas besides, winter just makes people's utility bills higher. And if you've ever been in an extremely poor family like I have, you know that like sometimes you just need some help. So
Yeah, and also, yeah, if you find that you can't spare the time to volunteer, or if you have extra money, you can always just donate money to. That's something nice to do with holiday spending.
and the Foundation Beyond Belief is a great resource for how to spend that money.
Definitely.
For those who don't know, Foundation Beyond Belief is a atheist charity aggregator. Basically, they find secular charities that atheists would support, and you donate to them, and then they basically pick out, I think, 4 charities every quarter to donate to. Fantastic organization.
Yeah, very neat. Very neat. So, like, a fundraiser for that would be a great idea. Everybody get together and have, I don't know, a chili cook-off or something, and chip in $5. And yeah, it's definitely a good thing to do.
And you could also sponsor a family too. There's a bunch of different organizations that help make that possible. Or you could sponsor a family within your group that isn't doing that well.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Okay, so we've kind of mostly been focusing on Christmas. But the next one coming up, besides Halloween, which I don't know if we're going to count that one on this, is Thanksgiving. So what kind of things would you recommend doing besides just a standard potluck?
It's kind of a hard one. Here we're celebrating Thanksgiving, which is awesome. But as far as getting together with a group, I've heard like Wednesday is like right before Thanksgiving is like the best bar night of the year apparently. So there's always a good skeptics in the pub opportunity there for people who want to blow off some steam before they go spend 12 hours with their family.
I'll keep that in mind. I was unaware of that. I wonder if the same is true in this part of the world.
Probably.
No, I hadn't thought of that. I do find it a little bit annoying that whenever you do meet with religious family members, they act surprised that you would be glad about things, because who are you thanking?
Yeah.
This reminds me of that wonderful cartoon that was making the rounds on Reddit and Facebook, where it shows a family seated around a table and they all have their heads bowed and their hands together in prayer, and they're saying, "Thank you, Jesus, for this food." And then the second half of the picture has this Latino farmer, and he says, "De nada." Yeah.
So we have like real things to be thankful for, and people to be thankful for, rather than.
Well, I think it's the same things that we're thankful for at the end of the day. It's just that we're thanking people who actually contributed to that effort and put work in and put time in and so on. And in a way, they've already been thanked just by the invisible hand of getting paid. But it's also, I think, important that we take time out and just have some thought about it, even though they can't obviously feel it or it's not like anything supernatural is going on, but I think it's important that we take some time to appreciate where our food is coming from and so on,
as a way of like understanding the gift of society itself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also reminded when I read through Richard Wiseman's book 59 Seconds, he was talking about all the various studies into what actually improves your life, as opposed to self-help books, which almost universally suck. And one of the things that they found was that expressing gratitude, even if the person isn't there to receive it, makes you happier. And so I think that expressing gratitude towards the people who've made our lives better is fairly worthwhile.
Yeah, it definitely, in the sense of it makes you feel better. I think it's extremely important that we, as rational, reasonable naturalists, point out that doesn't actually help the person on the other end of the gratitude, just expressing it, to ourselves. But I agree that if it makes you feel better, that in that sense, it's a good thing to do.
I'm always suspicious of anything where that's the best reason to do it.
Yeah,
but
it's a reason to do it,
yeah.
And if it doesn't hurt anybody.
And apparently it makes you feel better.
Yeah.
I mean, I would be worried about people using it in kind of the same kind of slacktivist way, that like people will share a story or like a story on Facebook and think that that's contributing to fixing the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
And I could totally be guilty of that because I share stuff all the time thinking, yes, people will finally know about this. But, like, you still got to get out and do stuff.
Mhm. Yeah, there's a great blog. Let's see if I can find it here. It's called. Uh, I'll have to find it later. It's called "With Good Intentions" or something similar to that. Um, where basically the blogger talks about different ways that you can actually help, and looks at different kinds of charities and things, and sees which ones are only have the appearance of helping and which ones are actually helping.
Hmm. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah. Let's see if I can find it. Oh, goodintents.org. Uh,
I will have to check that out. So I kind of dismissively mentioned Halloween, uh, and I could probably use that same dismissive attitude towards like St. Patrick's Day or Valentine's Day. Um, However, like those are also opportunities for your group, even if they don't have the same kind of depth and meaning uh, that Christmas or Thanksgiving might.
New
Um,
Year's is always fun, I guess. But
I mean, dressing up in costumes is fun, even if they do tend to be disproportionately awful costumes.
sure, sure. I guess you could have a kind of a atheistic themed or free thinking themed costume contest.
Yeah, that could be great, but I mean, how many Bertrand Russells do you need at a party?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. It's hard to dress up as Elizabeth Cady Stanton and things like that. or,
I had my
Emma
Elizabeth
Goldman.
Cady Stanton pin on at work, and one of my coworkers looked at it and said, "That's Lady Gaga, right?"
Oh, that made me hurt.
Oh, it was kind of awesome because it was the pin where she has the sunglasses on.
Oh no. Fantastic. This makes me Hey, he's back.
author photo. There he is.
Hey.
Happens almost every time.
Okay, are we back on the air?
Yep.
All
As soon
right.
as I get back on it starts broadcasting again.
Great.
Cool.
I
So
feel like that's got to be really distracting for watching. It's like, damn it, he always gets knocked off at some point.
it's awesome.
Happened when I was on the nonprofits too, both times.
So as far as Halloween goes, costume contesting or contests, or I always thought it'd be fun to go trick or treating as an adult, but hand out candy. Kind of fun.
Hmm.
So you could do things like that. I had the best time at our New Year's celebrations in Springfield. It's kind of cool. Just staying up till midnight playing board games. Kind of lame, but it's fun.
Yes, all of that kind of stuff is very fun. Although I have to admit that after reading Yo Is This Racist, I'm just beginning to lose all faith in Halloween.
Oh,
Like, I really need somebody to make like like a holiday special to teach me the true meaning of Halloween.
yeah, yeah. We went as a nun and a friar this year. It was really fun. Kind of cool. But yeah.
I've
Yeah.
gone as Fry more than once, but that's just because my hair kind of does that thing anyways.
Oh, very good. Awesome.
I don't remember the last time I dressed up for Halloween, but I should probably do that again. Maybe I will. Sounds like fun.
It's a good time. So, as far as other holidays go, I kept meaning to plan like a Valentine's Day sort of singles dinner thing. I always thought that'd be kind of a good idea for a group to do.
You know, I think it's a good idea in theory, but like really starting to think it's a bad idea. Like the more I see like how like there is a problem with overt sexism, I'm like, oh, I don't know if we should really be inviting this. Like, let's just let people ask each other out at their own time. Like, I know I'm probably, overcompensating a little bit, but
And that may be why it never happened. It's a really good theory.
but like maybe something like speed dating would be good,
And it depends on the size of your group and the makeup of genders in your group too, and gender orientations. Yeah, if your group is predominantly male like ours is, then I don't know how much speed dating would be useful. I think everybody knows everybody.
Yeah, it's not so much fun also if you have like 10 people. And
but they might be into dudes too, so that might not
Yeah.
necessarily be a problem.
could be speed friending.
Speed friending, that's an interesting one. Spend 5 minutes talking to somebody from the group that you haven't talked to before.
Hey, why not?
I'm writing that down. Yes, we're totally doing that in a meeting at some point.
Speed friending. It's a good call.
Yeah, definitely. 4th of July is an easy one to get people together for. A lot of people like fireworks, even if they're expensive and terrifying. But yeah, I mean that's an easy one to do. Everybody wants to get together for food and blowing things up.
I always wanted to get people together for Guy Fawkes Night, just because one of the traditions, besides burning an effigy of Guy Fawkes, is burning an effigy of the Pope. And maybe that's not for everybody, but I mean, it's fire, and fire's fun.
Also, I think most people, even if they're not into Anonymous or Occupy Wall Street, love the Guy Fawkes mask.
Oh yeah, yeah, it looks cool.
And it's also like, if you're a history nerd like me, it could be an example of an opportunity to teach people about who Guy Fawkes actually was and what this whole gunpowder plot was all about.
Right, exactly. Yeah, because you'll just get a bunch of people at the meetup telling you, no. Yeah, but still fun.
I know everything about Guy Fawkes. Natalie Portman told me.
You can just watch the movie and criticize it. It'll be great.
Okay, well, before we get to Boxing Day, are there any more things we should touch on with the major holidays that are coming up?
At some point, I did want to bring up that the Secular Student Alliance has a website with a list of a bunch of different activities that your group can do with downloadable guides for how to do them for different types of secular holidays. Everything from service events like we talked about earlier, blood drives and so on, to flying spaghetti monster dinner, free hug days, and then the more traditional like Stony Heathen for charity and stuff like that, Superstition Bash. The website
in the more traditional category.
I love the what?
I love that that's in the more traditional category. If you really want to get back
really
to your
going
roots.
back to tradition here, to our roots. The website is secularstudents.org/activity packets. I'll post this in the chat here.
And as I mentioned before, if you're a group organizer and you haven't flipped through that guide for group organizers, absolutely check it out. It's useful even if you're not a college group.
Those SSAers are so on it.
That's where the future is in this movement.
I agree.
Very cool.
Well, are there any closing thoughts?
Give me a
Excited about
call.
Skepticon.
Oh yeah, there's a thing called Skepticon that's coming up. It's kind of the bee's knees.
Yeah, it really is. It really is.
So the main hotel is full, as I understand it, and the Holiday Inn Express is almost full, or it might be full by now. But the conference itself is free. Go to skepticon.org to register for that. You have to register if you want to go, but it is free to register in Springfield, Missouri. And yeah, it's a wonderful time. 3 days of workshops and talks and getting to know everybody. It's just a great time.
And as I mentioned before the start of the show, I actually think the Skepticon is more fun than Christmas or Halloween combined. Like it really is like the thing I look forward to all year.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, me too. I'm
Yeah,
really sad when it's over.
yeah,
I
I
mean,
completely agree.
what other time of year do you get to meet with real historians and argue with them, to see if your ideas actually hold any weight whatsoever?
Agreed.
I'll give you a hint, mine don't.
Anybody that's read his book might. Which
Look,
is
all I'm
Unbelievable
saying,
History, which I'll plug for you.
all I'm saying is George Washington was not a robot. He was clearly a cyborg. At least 20% of him, organic material.
Clearly.
Unlike Mitt Romney or some other people I could mention.
Heyo.
Oh,
Oh boy. I can't wait till this election season's over. That's the holiday I'm looking forward to.
Well, the other resource that I would recommend for any listeners who are interested in uh, like help and getting their group going is events.skepchick.org, which is the sponsor of this show. The events team for Skepchick is awesome. I can't recommend them highly enough. And if you have an event you'd like to see get more publicity, send them an email. They will post about it. It's awesome. And on that note, I guess we're going to go ahead and close out for the day, and we'll be back again next week. We're going to try to do these shows a little bit more frequently than we were doing. Uh, and thank you again, Dave and Cassie, for joining me.
Thanks. Thanks for having
thank
me.
you. Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, and until next time, this is Some Assembly Required.